Okay, let me tape some of these wires up. Because right now they're in the way.
Did you say you want us to mute?
Yeah, I don't know where that sound is coming from.
I don't hear anything.
Oh, I don't hear
We
it right
were
now.
we were getting slurping and so forth sounds. I have no idea where they're from.
So,
Okay. All right. We're using cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, raw sienna, burnt sienna, and the brown madder. Uh, when I'm painting a waterfall, the object is to paint around the white water at first and go back in and soften the edges. But the process is still the same as background to foreground. And from working from light to dark and more intense color to gray, and working the larger areas, the smaller areas. Now, I've changed a number of things that were in the photograph. I've created a bigger background here as a kind of, so we have a little bit of distance feeling as opposed to what's in the photograph. And something that your eye can rest back here a little bit more than all this busyness up here, where I'm going to combine all the rocks together in various colors of washes and let them blend together and then go back in and separate. So we're not painting rock by rock, and I'm going to be adding texture to that, not only with water, but with other color as it dries. So
Interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
So you're drawing, you have the waterfall smack dab in the middle of the canvas. Is that?
yeah, I do. But we have this enough to pull over. This side is going to be more intense color and have the lighter lights on it. This will be muted over here, so it won't be equal. But yeah, I do have it almost in the middle. Yeah, it's about the middle. I'm going to see if I can get away with that.
Okay. I was checking.
Okay, I'm a chicken too. Okay, I'm going to start off in the background. I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and the sap green here and add a little bit of the brown matter to this. And I'm going to paint around some of the rocks that are in the background here so that I can go back in while it's still wet. I add more ultramarine blue to this as I'm going across the landscape here, because we have a lot of green and yellow and browns in the water. I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to this in the middle. And if you notice, I'm painting in different directions with the color so that it's not all in one direction. So it gives a little bit of a foil for what's going on in the foreground. So I'm going to add some more ultramarine blue and some sap green and a little bit of the burnt sienna. And I'm going to make this side a little bit darker. So I'm playing values off of the value. So this will be darker, this will be darker, so it bounces back and forth. Add a little bit more raw sienna to this. Again, painting around the rocks at the very beginning that are in the background. I can always pull them out too to make sure that they're soft. So we have a very dark background so that it falls back, it doesn't come forward. And I'm going to put a couple of, while this is still wet, I'm going to put a couple of trees back here that have kind of fallen. And they'll be soft enough that they won't be bothersome. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with just a little bit of water with the toothbrush, and this will disperse some of the pigment and give it a little bit of texture. Now, I am going to go in and I'm going to take the burnt sienna. Just a minute. I got to tape this thing away from me. I keep on grabbing it. So I got a little bit of time here. I'm going to take the burnt sienna and I'm going to make the rocks in the background bleed into the background color with the burnt sienna. So I'm going to take the burnt sienna here. It's kind of muted because I've got a little bit of green in my brush. And they're going to be on the darker side. And I'm not going to try to have them pull out too much, but I will watch the color that I'm putting down. Now, I'm going to take the raw sienna with the green, and I'm going to go into the water around the rocks. And then come in with the burnt sienna and a little bit of the brown matter on the other side. So as it comes out to the light that's hitting the water up here. And I'm adding a little bit of raw sienna to this. So there's going to be a lot of color. I'm going to change brushes for a moment. And we can always pull out the light later on. And I'm going to allow this color. I got a little bit of this color moving over the waterfall. And I'm going to use the ultramarine blue. So we have a lot of color that's happening. Then I'm going to go to the green here. And I'm going to add the green right into the blue. And I'm going to take the side of a dry brush and I'm going to allow this to fall down. So I'm painting in the direction of the water flow. And I'm going to bring this, we have a little bit of water flow on the other side. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that color in here, like so. Now, that's as far as I'm going to take this part of the wash, for the simple fact that we can go into the rocks later. So I want you to paint the background and the water, but before I stop this right here, there's some glistening on the water right here, which I'm always telling you timing is everything, and I'm going to pull this out just a little bit. It's not as light as I'm going to have it at the end, but it will come forward later on. And I'm going to bring this a little bit down into here, like so. And now I'm going to leave it alone. So the background is the sap green, the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and it's got a variety of things. And I want to tip this up a little bit while it's still wet. And I'm going to hit it with the toothbrush again. So it'll run a little bit. And then I came down into the water here with a little bit of the sap green and raw sienna to the burnt sienna to the raw sienna, and then the ultramarine blue with a little bit of the green in it. And we're going to kind of keep the water on the softer side, but I'm just painting the values that you can see in the water as it starts to flow over the edge right there. But I want to tip this up pretty good, so it runs a little bit more. And I'm all going to lift out some light trees later on. So you can go ahead and paint just the top part. It's fairly dark, and you'll see how light it will dry as it goes through it.
Was that cobalt or ultramarine for that water going over the edges?
That was ultramarine.
Okay.
So I'm breaking this down a little bit differently than I normally would, for the fact that I don't want you to get lost in the rocks. It'll make more sense once I get into the rocks.
Dale, you did not spritz the top before you
No.
painted?
No, I worked wet pigment on dry paper so that so it wouldn't flow too fast and the color wouldn't become too diluted. I'm just kind of softening the edge of this right now as it flows into that whiteness of the water. For some reason on the video, these are showing up as light spots in here, and they're actually quite dark.
Is it just reflection from the lights?
I think it is, and I'm going to try to adjust that. I don't know how well I can adjust it here. Maybe if I redirect some of the light. Whoops. Don't block the camera. I think that's about as best as I can get so I can still see.
Try turning one light off and then the other light off to see if it is. Just see.
No, they're still showing up.
Yeah, try shutting down that one. There you go. That's that light.
This one over. Oh, it's the reflection of it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now try turning the middle one on.
I can't. It's
Okay.
all on the side.
Rough.
Yep.
You see a reflection at all?
A little bit.
I mean, was that light the problem?
Turn it back on once. It's the blue button. That doesn't change anything.
Okay, that's good.
So I can see.
Well, see, this spot is on your painting.
No, because it's wet.
But that's not on your
There's no
painting.
spot there.
Yeah. Okay.
We're also using a little bit of white gouache today too, so I forgot to mention that at the beginning.
Dale, I think I'm done.
All right, let's see what you got.
All right, hang on a minute.
Some nice glass vases with rope wrapped around it.
Give me 1 second. I gotta see if I can, okay, see myself. Okay,
Nice day bed.
switch.
Um,
Thank you.
all right, that's good. Okay,
Camera keeps moving.
I see it. You're
Stop.
fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Dale, can you talk about what's underneath? It looks like raw sienna or burnt sienna, maybe.
Burnt
Yeah.
sienna from here into raw sienna there. Then I lifted out a little bit of light right there, which later on I'll be lifting out more light later on. But it's just allowing this to flow kind of together. There's going to be other darks within here later on, but I want to get the rock settled in. But it's very simple. One color up against the other, allowing them to blend together.
Okay.
What'd you use the toothbrush on again?
I used the toothbrush with the water up in here,
Yeah.
and that was it. I
Okay.
didn't use any color.
Drip, which way? Which way do you want it to drip?
I took the board at that point and I allowed it to drip going like this, going up. So it's all going this way. What are you doing?
I was like, oh, look at that elbow. Gross. Oh, skin. Dehydrated, maybe?
Yeah, put some tape on the upper part of your arm, it'll go away.
Right? Okay, right. Maybe right here.
There
Okay,
you
there. There, that's better.
got a 20-year-old arm. The things you see in the mirror or a video,
I hate it.
yeah, well, you can't stop certain things, Denise. Wait till your knees do that.
They already do.
Oh, okay.
You see my t-shirt? Oh, damn it. This camera. It says basically I'm the sleepy elf.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
So my sister, we did a family photo a couple years ago, and she bought one for everybody in the family. And it was like, I'm the party elf, I'm the sleepy elf, I'm the grumpy elf, I'm it was really funny. And they suited everybody's personality.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's cute.
My brother's wife likes to take a family picture of everybody at certain events. And I told everybody when she's just about ready to shoot, turn around and bend over. And she hasn't taken any more shots of us since then. She doesn't want to be in any pictures herself.
Yeah.
My brother
We
thought,
we do a family picture every year. It's nice to have.
oh yeah, we did a regular one too, but my brother got yelled at. You could see her yelling at him in the truck. And he's pointing over at me, like, because it was my idea. I do cause problem in the family.
Okay, Dale, can I show you?
Yes.
Look like much, but
All right. Did you spray it with a little bit of water with the toothbrush?
no, I did not.
And then tip the board going upright like this.
Okay,
And then you'll get a little bit of that texture. Because I still
Okay.
got phases I'm gonna do on there, but you want to start off with a little bit of that at the beginning. How you doing, Sydney? All right. You can paint a little bit more of the green in here going across because we're gonna pull out some of those rocks. You have a little bit too much burnt sienna up there. Because I started off with the blue or the green and blue in here, and then across to the burnt sienna, raw sienna, then down to the ultramarine.
Picture.
Not yet. I gotta get my phone. Thanks for reminding me.
No.
Okay, we ready to go? Anybody need to show me anything at this point? All right, that's better. Now it's not so bright. Good. All right. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take half of a paper towel and I'm going to wet it and squeeze out all the water. So I end up with kind of something that looks like this. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to roll it through here just to pick up some excess pigment. And it'll give it a little bit of texture. It'll give it a little bit of depth back here. It didn't do a whole lot. I didn't want it to do a whole lot, but that's where I was headed with that. Now, I'm going to take and I'm going to start doing a wash on the rocks. I'm going to start off with the burnt sienna and the little bit of the brown madder and some of the ultramarine blue to slightly gray it. And I'm going to start by working the rocks here. I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine blue as I move down into the rocks here. And a little bit more ultramarine blue, because as I get down into the rocks where the water's at, it's going to be darker. And I'm going to take some ultramarine blue and some brown madder to where I get a kind of a violet color. And I'm going to put that up in here so that the darkness will not attract the eye. And I'm not worried about it overlapping up here because I'm going to adjust that later. And I'm going to take some more ultramarine blue mixed in with the brown madder, and I'm going to put it in here, making these rocks a little bit darker. And I'm going to add some of the burnt sienna down into here. So I'm combining all of this into basically one lump sum of color. And I'm using the brown madder and the ultramarine blue down here. I can always darken it up. And I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to just bring this up like this as the water would be splashing up on the rocks itself. Just a little bit to soften that. Now I'm going to go off to the other side and I'm going to take the brown madder with a little bit of the burnt sienna and a touch of what I just mixed up with the ultramarine blue. And I'm going to start painting in the rocks here, various colors, and allow them to combine together. I'm going to take some cobalt blue, mix it in with that. And there's a little bit of water that comes right up into here. So I'm going to be careful with that area. So I'm going to take some more ultramarine blue here. And I'm going to darken this up just a little bit as it gets towards the waterfall. And I'm going to take the toothbrush with a little bit of water on it. And I'm going to take some more ultramarine blue. And I'm going to paint the rocks down at the bottom a little bit darker. And I'm going to take some raw sienna in with that burnt sienna that's right here. And I'm going to start by painting some of the other rocks in here. A little bit warmer color, come up into here. So all of this becomes kind of one large conglomeration of color. Over here, I'm graying the color down a little bit more. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to pull this in just a little bit more. There's a couple rocks up in there. Then I'm going to bring this all together down here. And I've muted the color over here quite a bit compared to off over here, so that all of this kind of runs together. And I'm going to take a little bit more ultramarine blue and some brown matter, and I'm going to make these rocks much darker down here so they don't attract too much attention. And then I'm going to take the paper towel, soften a little bit of that, and then manipulate this passage of water that kind of comes down and around. And it gets blocked off right in here. Like that. And then I'm going to take the toothbrush with water, and I'm going to put it on the rocks over here, a little bit on the rocks over there. So we have a balance of, this is balancing off this to a great extent. And then I'm going to take my larger brush, and I'm going to take the green, put it right into the combination here with a little bit more burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I'm going to put that right in here down at the bottom. So I want that water fairly dark right there. And I'm going to allow this to kind of meander by itself up into the rock here. Then I'm going to take the raw sienna and the sap green, a little bit of sap green. And I'm going to put the raw sienna full force right in here instead of over there. Take a little bit of that green again. And I'm looking at the pattern basically of the way the water is moving here. I'm going to take a little bit of that green by itself, mixed in with the raw sienna, and I'm going to dry brush that in to here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with the very dark, excuse me, with the very dark green. And I'm going to dry the brush off a little bit. Right up into the rock here. And then some ultramarine would be the last part I would put in right down here. And I'm doing little facets of color to create some of this movement. I'm still painting around the white water of the waterfall. So I want to keep that integrity there at this point. While I'm still taking this, I'm going to take some brown matter here and some more ultramarine blue. And I'm going to put it right into here, spritz it into here to create a little bit of texture. And some over here. We want to get this a little bit darker. Now, I'm going to take the wet paper towel again, and I'm going to pull out a little bit of light up in here. Not too much. And I want to pull out a little bit of light on this group of rocks that are right here. So it gives them a little bit more form, but nothing over here, but maybe just a little bit right there. So we've got everything set as far as the rocks in the background, and we can build off of that. But I'm going to be being very careful about going around this And I'm going to be putting in subtle colors and passages in the water later, but not at this particular point. Be a couple steps away. And I'm going to go get some clean water. But clean off your palette every so often so you don't end up with muddy color or something you don't want. But we're allowing a lot of the watercolor just to kind of mingle together in this particular watercolor, except for the tops of the rocks here, which I'll give you a remedy for that. What I am going to do is take my 1-inch brush and kind of soften a little bit of the movement up against the lightness of the white water. Not too much though.
Could you please repeat the green colors in the water? That part.
Okay, down here, I put in the sap green, the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the brown matter through here. It's more
Uh,
the blue-green side. And then I went to the raw sienna, and then raw sienna toned down with a little bit of green and into the green again. Over here, I used the same color as I used over here up against the rocks itself.
Thank you.
Sure. And many times I will allow the rocks to take on their own form. It won't necessarily look like the rocks in the actual painting. What I am going to do is I'm going to come in here with a little bit of the sponge and lighten up some of this spray. I was waiting for this to dry just a little bit up against the rock on this side. So we don't have too much of a hard edge over here.
Take a picture. Oh, sorry.
Todd's gonna be shooting off a couple rounds.
I heard him once already.
All right. Because the fire won't burn.
Well, too wet, huh?
It's too wet.
So the browns will help set it on fire? Well, you said, it the way you said it.
He needs to pull in some of the dead wood into it.
Oh. That's happy, we're gonna do that. Happy. Look what I got.
But just allow all those rock colors to kind of flow together. We'll divide it up later. Sometimes you'll allow those washes to tell you where you really want the rocks.
Last homemade bread. It's free. No, they're both free.
think I'm done.
All right, let's see what you, let's see what you have.
Hmm.
That's fine.
I don't have brown matter, so I'm using alizarin crimson.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. You can always make a reasonable facsimile brown matter out of the burnt sienna
Burnt
and
sienna and crimson.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it shouldn't be too much of a problem. The reason why I'm giving you this particular subject matter is I like you to kind of rise up above what we've been doing, stretch your wings a little bit so that you get used to doing things a little bit above what you've done already.
Yeah.
I know what Judy's thinking. Oh my God.
Waterfalls is hard for me.
Waterfalls are a little bit more difficult, but all it is the value changes that you've got to do. You get used to doing some rocks, you get used to doing some water, and you're using it on other subject matter also. So yeah, it is a little bit more difficult to do, but it's my Christmas present to you guys. And I think the more that you experience in painting, the better off you are. Always trying a little bit more difficult subject than what you're used to. I could have done a Christmas barn, but we're doing a Christmas waterfall. And this poor restaurant that we used to go to when I was a kid blew up the other day in Eagle River. It was a 4-alarm fire outside of Eagle River. It wasn't downtown. And I got up about 5:30 and I saw this glow in the sky from, it has to be, at least 10 miles away by the way the crow flies. But I couldn't figure out what the glow was. And I found out about half hour later that the restaurant caught on fire and then blew up. Nobody was hurt, thank God, but the restaurant was a total loss. And it's unfortunate because this is coming into the time of year where they start making a little extra money too. But we hardly have any snow up here, maybe just about an inch in the woods, which is not good for business with snowmobilers. Last year we had probably 1.5 feet by this time, but it's going to be light this year. I think Sydney's gonna get clobbered more than we are.
We don't have anything.
You don't have anything?
No, our
Huh.
lawns are bare.
Oh, well, we have about an inch of snow. I thought you got hit with a snowstorm, not too much more than what we had, but
South of us,
oh, south, okay.
I think when it comes across Lake Michigan, it hits Beaver Island and splits and goes north and south of us.
Okay, that makes sense.
We seem, when we want rain, we don't get it.
Yeah, that's what we had all summer.
Yep.
We would have it split about 40 miles west of us and go north and south of us, but we didn't get any. Very strange.
And then Lafayette would get nailed.
Yeah. Even down in Indiana, we weren't getting what we used to get. We were in the snow belt for the longest time, and then it just shifted to the east
And south.
and south. Indianapolis was getting far more.
Dale, this was a watercolor I think I must have done it in Larry's class.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I've done several
Drawings.
over the years, and Marilee wants to
I
see
want
it.
to see. Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think she's a little too drawn, but
Well,
what I find it so hard watercolor figure portraits.
yeah, they are. And I've done several of them over the years, a couple commissions with figures and portraits and stuff. And yeah, they're tedious.
Yeah, very I guess just get nervous, like, not to have the wrong shades on the face and then the hard lines. And then you're like, oh, wait, that's not where it's, I don't know, unless you're really good at drawing figures in the first place, which I'm not terribly good at.
Well,
So I worry more.
it does take time and practice, no doubt about it.
Who was that woman that taught watercolor at the Gilmans that had the Native American Indian pose from the tribe?
Fullerton?
Oh, she had beautiful portraits.
Here.
But boy, you really gotta know your watercolor.
Mhm.
Yeah, she had the Native American tribe come in that was the local from the town. They own a lot of the land up there,
And he was dressed in full,
regalia.
yeah, oh, it was beautiful.
All the way back, he was wearing things back from his great grandfather and grandmother. I mean, they hand them down, and it was fascinating.
And some pieces his wife and his mother worked on, all this beading. It was, I mean, I took pictures of them. If I can find them, I'll share them with you. Just gorgeous.
Okay, Judy, that's not bad. Remember, this is your first waterfall, I'm assuming. You're gonna get your darks darker on the rocks as we move along, but you're fine. Hang in there. I know this is a little bit more frustrating, but eventually you'll get it. You should have seen the first time I did rocks. It took me a while to get the right texture and the colors going. And I thought, oh, this is good. And I kept on going, and I ended up looking at it right at the end, not paying attention to the watercolor. All my rocks were identical. It was like, oh, thanks. I did that to myself. And when I redid it, I made sure that the rocks were different sizes, different values, different colors. And it turned out 100% better. But it takes time to understand what you can do with the rocks, but you have to be aware of different sizes and different colors and different values. You're going to talk to yourself while you're doing this a lot. And you'll repeat it to yourself because you forgot what you were saying. You're on mute right now, by the way. You're talking to yourself.
Oh, okay, all right.
It-
No,
it's-
I was saying, I know with colored pencil I could do this great, but that's why I'm trying to learn watercolor, because
It's not that easy, and I know it isn't.
Yeah.
It's something that you eventually get a hold of with practice. This one here, I have to show you this. There's a story that goes with this. I did this, several years back, and I was cutting the mat for it for the frame. And I know you're seeing all these goofy lights up here. It looks like aliens landing. But what had happened is that I used transparent watercolor and I used a little bit of gouache. When I cut the mat, the white mat, I was sizing everything to the frame. And when I got done cutting it, I put the mat on the frame and the painting ended right here. I cut the mat too big. And it was 10 o'clock at night, and I was driving them down to Nashville, Indiana, and the next day to deliver. And I had no choice, but I needed to add on a good 1.5 inches up here. And thank God, for some reason, somebody was watching me upstairs. I had left this much paper, like this much. And I painted this all in on top to match the bottom. And I put it together and it was fine. And I ended up winning 3rd place in the
oh,
show that year, which
And
it's primarily an oil painting show down in Nashville. And I'm one of the 5 watercolors that entered. And I won 3rd place, and I was told that no watercolorist had gotten that high up. But the best thing about it is I got this hand-blown trophy, glass trophy and a check, of course.
A palette and a paintbrush.
Yeah, it was a palette with a paintbrush that came off of it. It was kind of cool.
It's
I
a very
kept-
nice
I kept
painting.
I kept the trophy and gave the check to Mary Lee. I just wanted the trophy.
Yeah, but tell them what I bought.
Well, that was the first one. You bought a camera.
Yeah.
I forgot what we bought the second one. But, you make mistakes, and this was like the, 20th, 25th painting of rocks that I did. And it was a waterfall that we have up here in the Upper Peninsula. But it was just like, I couldn't believe I cut the mat wrong, and I had no.
Well, you did a great job.
But it can be very aggravating.
Yeah. It's a different way of thinking.
Yes, it is. Okay, how are you doing, Denise and Sydney? Did I see yours, Denise? Okay,
Oh, maybe, I don't know. Did you?
let me see.
Did I show it to you? I think I showed it to you.
Right there.
All right, yeah, you're fine. Good. You got a different size rock over here, but that's not bothersome. It still works very well.
Okay.
There's somebody behind you in your house. Must be your husband.
My husband and one of my daughters.
I think that was your husband.
Yeah.
No.
How are you doing, Sydney? Remember, you're on mute.
What do we need, Kaylee?
I got somebody to put it down the
I'm
table
here.
before I get to crack it.
My rocks don't look anything like your rocks. So, I mean, the drawing wasn't like that. So
That's all right.
I'm kind of lost, confused. And everything was way too light, so I just darkened some things.
That's all right. Can I see it? Or is it so wet?
No. You can't see it.
Judy, to get a little bit more texture on your rocks, you
Yeah.
may spray with the toothbrush just water and then lift.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Okay. Left with what?
Paper towel.
Okay.
Just to get that initial texture on there.
All right.
Because we're going to go into the background again next. Just remember, you're painting a painting, not the photograph. So don't allow the photograph to rule you. And everything you do is an adventure, to say the least.
That's true. Okay, you could see my mess, but
Let's see. That's not a mess at all. You're doing fine. You could still add a little bit more texture on the rocks that are off to the left by spraying a little bit of water on there and then a little bit of color. Spray the water first, lift, and then hit it with a little bit of color with the toothbrush.
okay.
All right, I'm going to get started again. So I'm going to go to the background. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lift a little bit on the shoreline here. So I have a little bit of that light hitting where the water would crest up. And it gives me a line to work off of. And then I can build the rocks in the background from there. And I'm going to bring that light a little bit more forward here. And I'm going to adjust that later on, but I want to get that just a little bit lighter up to the waterfall here. And I can always add in dark later on. Now I'm going to pull out some of the rocks that are in here. So that I can paint around them. Now I'm going to put a bigger rock over here. It wasn't in the drawing, but there's some things that I adjust as I move along, and I allow the painting to kind of tell me what I need to add or not add at all. So I'm lifting out some of the rocks that are on the shoreline back here. And I'm making sure that I'm doing them in odd number groups, so I don't have anything that looks too even. And different sizes, different shapes. Then I can paint around them. So I am going to go into the background here, and I'm going to add the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue, because I want to tie in some of the color that is down here, along with just a little bit of the green. So I'm adding a little bit more blue to this. And that way I can go in here and I can dry brush in some of the warmer tones that I have in the foreground, painting around some of the rocks to push them out. And every 3, 4 brush strokes, 5 brush strokes, I am changing color or temperature, but I'm dry brushing a lot of this in back here for the simple fact that I want some of that color from the initial wash to show up, which will help give me a little bit more depth. Then I'll add some other color and so forth in here. And I'm scratching out some small trees here and there. But I want that background to really fall back. And I'll add other textures and so forth in there later on. But I'm making the background semi-interesting, but on the darker side. So I added a little bit more ultramarine blue, paint around that rock that's in the foreground here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 1-inch brush and I'm going to lift some fallen trees back there and some other trees and so forth. So I'm gonna lift out. And it's not going to be real bright for the simple fact I don't want it coming forward. And I'm going to have a couple branches come off of here. I'm going to lay one down a little bit lower. Because then I'm going to meld this together in the middle with a wash in the water, but I'm going to add a couple trees here and there. And I'm taking my nail as long as it's wet and pulling out some smaller branches and so forth. Just kind of leak back in here a little bit. Now, I'm going to go to a smaller brush here. I'm going to use my number 10 round, and I'm going to start to pull in that color. Same colors I used in the background, I'm going to put down below here. In the water, and then slowly go over to the colors that we're starting to see up here. And take a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And then the burnt sienna and raw sienna. With a little bit of that green in it to gray it down. So we're trying to tone down some of that water back here. I can always pull out the light that I'm looking for later on. And I'm using little passages of value for the movement of the water. That glistening that's in the photograph is a little bit too bright, so I'm going to be very careful of not creating a little bit too much of that. Get rid of these white spots. And I'm going to bring this tree down a little bit more. And I'm going to angle one out right here. Then I'm going to take the burnt sienna and warm up these rocks back here by tinting right across them to bring some of that other color into the background. And then some raw sienna right over in here with a little bit of that burnt sienna. And then go to my smaller brush. And I'm going to add some of this green to it, just a little bit, to start to pull in a little bit more green. To pull some of that color down from up above. And then I'm going to take a dry brush on its side and pull that down into the waterfall. So it looks like it's cascading over. Get some darkness over here. So I got a lot of color in the water already, which is fine. Now I'm going to start with the waterfall down here, and I'm going to take the cobalt with a lot of water. And start teasing in some of that blue that is down in this area here. So I'm going to take the paper towel and I'm going to dry the watercolor brush off. And I'm going to start teasing in some of this color that is splashing up and around where these passages are. And I want to bring a little bit more darkness down in here. And I'll lift those other lights out later. But usually where it starts turning over, it gets a little bit darker as opposed to the top up here. And I'm adding in some accents of some darker blue while it's in here. So I'm looking at the force coming down and how it's bouncing back up. So I'm going to take a little bit larger brush here. Again, still using the cobalt blue. And I'm going to add just a touch of yellow in on it. And I'm going to bring that down into here. So the intense color's up here, and this is kind of grayed down here. And I'm going to tone this down. Tap the brush off. And bring this bouncing water back up into here. So I'm just looking at the patterns of things. This one I'm going to tone down pretty much. It's off to the side and it's come running out of the side here. And I'm going to just add a few little accents of some dark. I'm going to add a little bit of the green in on here. So I'm pulling all the colors down into the water. And the next thing we'll work on is the rocks as we move through this in the next phase. So I'm taking a little bit of the cobalt blue, a little bit of the green, and I'm bringing it right down into the water as it moves. Now, I'm going to also add a little bit of more darkness over here on the right-hand side with the green and the blue, with a little bit of this in here. And I'm going to kind of dry brush this in up against the rocks. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to that. So it kind of flows together a little bit more. And I don't want too much light down in here as it is in a photograph, so I am toning things down a little bit. Then I'll dry the brush off a lot with color on there, and I'm going to put some movement down in here and a little bit over here where it's getting a little bit darker. And I'll worry about the darkness of the rocks later. So we're starting to get a little bit more movement in here. This is quite different from the photograph because if I have that much light bouncing around in a dark place, it'll be too illuminated. So I'm adding a little bit of cobalt blue right into the water here, or into the rocks, and then let it bleed into the water. Then I'm gonna take a little bit more of this yellow green and I'm gonna bring it right out into the river. So that it's, again, the green is not isolated, it keeps on transferring. And I want this a little bit darker. And I think that's where I'm gonna end it. So we got a little bit of that color that's turning things over. So we're getting a nice splash going. Okay, so back up to here. What I did before I started was I mixed up with dark blue green with a little bit of burnt sienna. And I started going around the rocks. I did lift out a little bit of light up in here to start with. That crest of light. Probably this could be a little bit darker over here. And it just bleed across here. There. And then I lifted out the trees, used my fingernail to lift. And really the last thing that I would do up there is I would take a little bit of water in certain areas. And I'm going to lift. So I'm lifting out a little bit of light up in there. So it's not this heavy dark. So I'm adding with the toothbrush just a little bit of water. And I'm lifting out some of the lights that are up there. And I'll repeat that till I get to where I want it. That's better. So we're getting a little bit of light going up in there. Then I came down to the water and I added more dark down here. Then I brought this color across. So we're picking up a little bit of the color that's up here, down here. And then I emphasized the movement of the waterfall here, which was important to do. And I need to straighten out just a little bit more of this here. Got a little bit of darkness going on right here. And then I'm going to dry brush it into there. There we go. And then I move down the waterfall and then darken this up quite a bit down here so that it doesn't have that light. I want to add a little bit more movement down here. I don't want that light down there trapped with all those darks. Didn't do anything to the rocks itself. That's the next phase. I'm gonna go clean my sponges out. That's from.
No. I posted that little Grinch baby.
Yeah.
And she wrote on there. that she was in the hospital. Well, I'm not gonna say that. No.
We get a picture of this. Any questions at all? How we doing?
Terrible,
Judy?
terrible.
You have to smile and breathe while you're painting. If this is your first waterfall, uh, you're gonna have a little bit rougher time, but I wanted you to try it.
I am trying. I'm trying my best.
I know you are. Remember, it's the experience of doing it. Not everything turns out well. I have a lot of things in the landfills down in Northwest Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
And I can honestly say that I don't think there's any painting that's perfect in the world. Even from the masters, there's always something there that they thought they could make better.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right.
Excuse me. Thank you. I'm gonna go dry this for a minute. I'll be right back.
She was sitting in the emergency room right now. She said.
I'll give you about 5 more minutes and then we'll get started again. You'll be all right, Judy. Don't worry.
Breathe.
Okay, Denise, let's see what you have so far. So I can finish it up for you guys.
Okay. I didn't do the background even yet, the trees, but oh wait, what am I doing? Hang
Just
on.
all the dusk outside the
Okay,
window.
I don't need to turn it around. That's the problem.
All right, that's not bad. You don't even need to do too much except maybe lift that tree out in the background.
Yeah.
Because the next thing I'm handling is the rocks, and you've got good shape in the rocks. You could probably get this a little bit darker through here,
Yep.
but everything else is in place. That's good. Nice,
Thank you.
nice and
Thank
clean,
you.
not over labored.
No, I gotta stop on the rocks now and I'll do the background.
I'm gonna do the rocks next and work a little bit down here and finish this up. Okay, Sydney, how are you doing? Okay. You got a different look to your rocks, but I don't have a problem with that. We're gonna bring some of that color from the background into the rocks and warm the rocks up just a little bit more. This undercoating of the blue in here is gonna react of what I put on top of it, so that's all right. And you could probably get a little bit more texture on the rocks, but that can be done as you move along. Okay, Judy, let's see where you're at, please. All right, not bad at all. I like the way you got things going. Your color is super clean, which is wonderful. I'm gonna have you tone down a little bit up in here to bring the eye forward. Your
Okay.
warm colors will attract the eye first and cool colors second. You have this a little bit too warm up here. And even
Okay.
actually, I'm gonna tone mine down up in here, but I'm gonna get started on the rocks and see what we can do to finish this up. But you're well within the good boundaries. You have to remember that when you're painting like this, you're trying to get things the way that you want them to look, and you're only competing with yourself, not me.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
that's one thing I had to get through my head as a student.
Yeah. It's
There's one thing I need to adjust up here, and that is this is too warm up here. So I'm going to take the green and the blue a little bit and a touch of the burnt sienna, and I'm going to go into the rocks. So I'm going to tap this off a little bit, and I'm going to bring this across like so. It was too detached. And I'll worry about the light later. I'm not worried about it right now. And then I'm going to bring a little bit of that green into the waterfall up on top here. And then I'm going to work into the rocks. Okay, I need to bring some of that green down into the rocks, and I'm going to tone these rocks down here. I'm going to add a little bit of blue. But we have things that I used as an undercoating or a base for what's there. And I didn't want to adjust that until this particular point. So I'm going to take the toothbrush with a little bit of the raw sienna or the cobalt blue and the green, and I'm going to put some of the color in here and blend it right into the rocks itself. I'm going to add a little bit of the cobalt blue straight. A little bit more than just that. And then I'm going to take that green.
Sorry. What did you add? The green and cobalt blue down there? Just more?
I added the green, the cobalt blue, and the burnt sienna into here. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm taking the burnt sienna with a little bit of that green, and I'm going to put it into this area here. So I'm darkening up a lot of the rock at this point. And I'm ignoring the color to a certain extent of what the photograph was telling me. because I have to adjust it to the painting, not the photograph. I'm gonna make this rock a little bit darker. And as I come down, I'm gonna make this a lot darker in here. So there's a lot of color even within the dark. And I don't want to define too much on these rocks over here. So I'm using a little bit of dry brush in here. And that subdues that quite a bit. I'm being very careful at this point. I'm keeping the process slower. I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue straight in on some of these spots here. Just to be a little bit more descriptive. And I'm going to pull up a little bit of light down here just for a little bit of definition, get rid of this white here. I'm going to bring some of this darkness out with a little bit of the cobalt blue here. Now I'm going to travel over to the next rock formation. And I am going to start at the top. And I'm going to use a little bit more of the burnt sienna and the cobalt blue this time. And I'm going to try to maintain some of this light that I've put up here on the top. So I'm taking a damp brush right up against it, moving into the water just a little bit. Add a little bit of cobalt here and there. And I'm using this more as a ledge and not too many individual rocks. Then I'm going to go down to the ultramarine blue with the brown matter and gray it down a slight bit and put that right up against the water itself so that the water will be quite light. Dry the brush off and very carefully just sort of dry brush it into the water itself so you end up with kind of a softer edge that's frilled up against the water. And I'm going to be adding just a little bit of color down in here with the cobalt blue and the sap green. I want to bring a little bit of that color in at the bottom that is a little bit different than what's in the photograph. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this warmth and put it up in here. And then I'm going to dry brush in very lightly to tone that violet down. And then some pure cobalt down here at the bottom. And that will blend into that. So I'll put some of the detail on the rock in a little bit. So now I'm going to take the 1-inch brush. Now you see it's coming together more color related than what was here before. I'm going to take the damp brush and I'm going to pull out a little bit of the water here. And I'm going to take the smaller brush and go to the cobalt blue. And I'm going to put the blue up against the rock here. And that will soften some of that. Add some extra values in here. Like I say, I'm not too concerned about this over here. I'll add a little bit of description to it as we move along. And then we have a lot more blue down in here. And I want to bring some of this yellow green out into the water with smaller passages of color. And then soften that just a little bit. And a little bit of ultramarine blue. And I'm going to put some description in on the rock here just a little bit. Some accents of dark. Now, I'm going to clean the palette. I'm going to start using the gouache with the color. And a lot of it's going to be dry brushed in. So I'm going to take the white gouache and I'm going to take the cobalt blue just a little bit. And I'm going to dry it off on the paper towel, and I'm going to move my brushes out of the way here. And I'm going to bring this up into here. So it's a matter of dry brushing in a lot of color, and I'm going to add a little bit of the raw sienna to it, and that will help warm it up and pull it out a little bit. Not too much. And add a little bit of a accent here. A lot of it's a lot of little tedious stuff, but that's okay. And I'm just looking for certain passages that will make this form up a little bit better. Take a little bit of the green that's over here, and I'm going to add it in a dry brush manner off over here. That way it's toned down a little bit. And I'm going to bring that up into the rock here as it splashes. Give it a little bit more character. A little bit over here. And I'm going to bring a little bit of light glistening back in here. Not too much. But it's a lot of little stuff that you can do to this, but you don't want to get carried away. Take a little bit of the cobalt. And I'm going to add a few passages right down in here, up on the yellow green a little bit. But this has the cobalt blue in it, and I'm just adding a touch of this. Then I'm going to go in and add a few darker accents in on the rocks with the ultramarine blue and the brown matter. little bit of burnt sienna, I think. With that, that's better. Adding just some darker accents to the rock to give it a little bit more character over here. Not so much off on the right and not so much off over here, just kind of around the waterfall where it hits. And then I'll show you a few tricks that you can do. I'm going to get this a little bit darker right here. A lot of these very dark accents are always put in at the end. And I think we need some right in here. Not heavy, not too much paint. Maybe a crack here. And a little bit up in here to pronounce that. Now, you can take the toothbrush at this point, and I'm going to add just a little bit of spray up in here, just to give this a little bit better movement. But not equally all the way down, just in one or two areas. And that will give it better movement. The other thing that you can do, a couple things, is you can take your razor blade and you can go along and pull out some lighter lights back to the weight of the paper, like so. I'm going to take it flat, and I'm going to give this a little bit of sparkle in here. And so, something that is less abrasive than this, you can take a nail file or a piece of fine sandpaper. I use the nail files a lot. And I'm going to put in a little bit of glistening up in here, right along this edge right here. And right on top of this rock. But you can take this just a little bit. You don't need to do a lot, so let's take the tape off and see where we're at. Now, when I taped this down, I took a little bit away from the drawing of the painting on the right-hand side. I got to be careful with this tape because it does pull up the paper a little bit on the indigo paper. I taped it down last night, which then it's kind of sinks in a little bit more. I'll take a little bit more of the paper off, but I'm not concerned about it. but it shows you a cleaner edge. But that's where we ended up. And please send me your painting when you're done so I can see what you've done, what you need to do, how to correct it. Let me pull this up just a little bit closer to the camera. And at this point, I want to wish you all a wonderful Christmas and a New Year's, and stay safe, stay
Hey,
healthy.
Dale, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Maybe? Okay, so the rocks in the foreground, you are more what, ultramarine blue and
I added the green and the ultramarine blue to it.
Mhm.
And then I added that dark accent right here with the brown matter, the burnt sienna, and the ultramarine.
okay. And then the rocks on the left are more cobalt blue. I'm just
I
trying to
added-
get like the
I added-
values.
Yeah, I added some cobalt blue down in here, but I took
and
this
temperature.
color, warmed it up. I added more burnt sienna to it, and I added it over here so that these are cooler overall. This is a little bit.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay,
Just so,
okay,
just so
I'll
that
send you my final.
we don't make them equal
Yeah,
in temperature or value. So
right,
these,
that's what I'm trying to do.
this is receiving light. And right now I'm looking at this, it looks like a hippopotamus. There's the eye, the nose coming down, the little ears there and there.
Easy to fix. Right, right,
Yeah,
easy to fix. Okay, I'll send you a picture when I'm
yeah.
finished. I'm not gonna ruin it.
No, ghost. At this point, you want to go very slow.
Yeah.
If I was painting a studio by myself, I'm always stepping back from the painting and then going back and adding a few passages and then stepping back again.
Okay,
The only time I paint from start to finish, with the interruptions, of course, is when I'm demonstrating like this. But this particular rock has subtle color changes. This has more of a larger thing, and
right.
I got to get rid of that hippopotamus look. That's really bothersome. My-
Hungry hippo. All right. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you. Merry Christmas.
Have a
Merry Christmas.
There we
Merry
go.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Hope you
You
don't-
too. Have a great holiday.
You too.
Too.